Hi, my name's Lynda Mcfarlane, and my role in life is to be a human being. And at the moment, I'm following my passion, and my passion is helping people. It's about creating opportunities. It's about championing the underdog. And one of the things that I've advocated in my role as previously a counsellor is helping people through their journeys whilst they're experiencing hardship. And that took me further into the world of psychotherapy, which has really been instrumental in my healing and my understanding of myself. And I'd love to walk alongside people on their journey when they find challenges.
Hi Lynda.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us, I really appreciate it. So, as you know, the Black Heritage Support Service is about educating the Black community. In particular, COVID-19 has really kind of magnified some of those issues that were already there. So this is about bringing together Black health professionals to help us implement different techniques and things that we can do to better our lifestyle. So you're a psychotherapist, and in particular we wanted to kind of look at our mental health, you know, the mental state of our community constantly going through some of these really traumatic times, and always being affected the most out of all the groups, with COVID affecting us 4 times more than wider society. How do you think it will affect, or it is affecting us in regards to knowing that every time there is a big crisis, we're the most affected from it? We've just had Grenfell, you know, sort of last year, and then we had the Rindrush scandal. So how do you think it affects our mental health, knowing that every time something like this happens, we're at a high risk?
I think it affects our mental health from the perspective of feeling as if we're constantly under attack in one way or another. And part of my concern going forward is, yes, we are resilient, yes, we are resourceful, but that comes at a price. And also the fact that because we are creative, this becomes part of our normal reality. So when we lose people and we get a sense of something's not quite right, but we don't get the answers we need, and we continue. Or we get angry as the whole, you know, Black Lives Matter, things have come to a head, there's anger. It's almost like being re-stimulated through our trauma. So when we have the anger and we display it, almost becomes ignored again after it's dissipated. But that anger goes somewhere. Where does it go? How do we deal with that? Where does our voice on a consistent basis get heard? Do we give up? Do we regroup ourselves and restructure and then carry on? But nothing's been really effectively done. So therefore we have these eruptions because it's been swallowed. We've normalised it, but it's not normal. We're actually being re-triggered through our trauma. And then we explode. And then we are judged. And then we are dealt with. We are processed. We are analysed. But nothing really changes. And it's through the helplessness that we feel that affects our mental health. But who deals with that?
So do you think most Black people are aware of that? Do you think most Black people are aware that actually, oh my God, I'm being triggered again? This is why I feel angry every day when I'm waking up. This is why I feel depressed. This is why I don't want to get out of bed. Or go into a workspace where I'm the minority yet again, and everyone's acting like everything's okay.
And it's the acting like everything is okay part that is the trigger. Because part of trauma, and one of the things that I'm fascinated by the works of, or the research or the awareness of, post-traumatic enslavement disorder that masquerades as our culture. It is not our culture.
Because
it really
this is something
isn't.
That's come up,
And so when you are in a traumatic state already, we are on survival mode, not living. So when you are being re-triggered or re-stimulated, you have a response. When it's not understood, when it's not accepted, when it's acted as if it's a level playing field, and it really isn't. But you have no answers, but you have feeling, and that's one thing our community has, is great feelings.
Yeah.
What do you do with those feelings when no one understands you? Or everyone's feeling the same, so it's almost become normalized. But there's nothing done about it. There's no empathy, there's no understanding, there's no help to deal with those feelings. What do we do with them? We normalize them and we carry on. But something happens to our psyche in that. So the feelings of, I don't have any energy anymore. I just don't want to be here anymore. I can't see myself in society. I'm not valued. I can't see the future as being bright or optimistic. I can't see myself being able to live out my full potential. I can't see myself being given the same opportunities despite me working so hard. What's the point?
So what can we do? Other than kind of relying from this external, it's almost is compassion and just acknowledgement. Outside of getting that, what can we do as a community? One
of the first things as a community is using platforms like yourself or like this, is to start talking about it. And in the conversation, something may be picked up to think, I get that. That's how I feel. Oh my gosh, I'm not an alien, or I'm not alone in this. For me, one of the things that helped me to understand even my own conditioning was when I had something to be able to define it by. So I'm experiencing this, it has a name, this is where it comes from, okay, I can deal with it. But if you don't know that you're traumatized, if you don't know that you're almost conditioned to behave and think a certain way, then you're going to think that you're on your own with this and nobody else understands. The first thing we actually do is having a conversation, bringing it to the public platform, unapologetically. It's now time to talk. Let's get down to the nitty gritty of why is it that so many people felt they needed to take to the streets. Not just in England, not just in Europe, but globally, because there's something globally that has happened. And the narrative within these communities is almost the same. What is it? And until we start asking what is it and why do we feel the same way? Feel, not think. Why do we feel the same way? Then this is going to fester under the carpet. We're going to feel uncomfortable talking about it. There's things that we have to also own once we're aware. But also, there's responsibilities of other communities in their part to play. This is part of the injustice. Is when we really want to start talking about the real fundamentals, and responsibilities need to be taken. But also we have a part to play in our healing process. And there's something around, there's a word that I came across recently and I hadn't used it in a while. And when I was a young salesmen would come to the house and do encyclopedias and so forth. And one of them was family health. And I remember being so bored out of my skull because we weren't allowed to watch TV, so I'd read these books. And there is a terminology that we don't use very often anymore, and it's called convalescing.
Okay. And what's that about now?
Convalescing. Okay, back in the day, it's about rest.
Okay.
So there were hospitals set up. Not sure about in other countries, but I know in this country, certainly from the images that I saw, there were hospitals that you could go to rest.
Oh, wow.
And your diet would reflect what your ailment was. So you'd have some period out of society.
It's almost like a retreat.
Absolutely like a retreat. But it was also part of the hospital process.
Right.
So convalescing is you did something very different. You ate differently, you had fresh air, you had the ability to reflect. All of those things. It's not a terminology it's used.
No.
So therefore, if you're healing, you don't do the same things as you do that made you ill.
Right. Absolutely.
So in part of our healing, part of the responsibility comes in is to recognise some of the things that think that we do that is culturally normal. And recognising it's not
normal. Absolutely.
It's not normal. So if we want to heal, there are things that we've got to start doing and stop doing. And it's taking on some of the responsibility. However, recognizing first that this, what we are displaying or feeling, is normal, bearing in mind it has its history.
So what are some of those things? Could you elaborate a little bit more on some of those things that we have to stop doing, and some of those things that we should start doing?
Okay, some of the things that I think we should stop doing is blaming ourselves. Okay? Blaming ourselves in context of, it is understandable that you do this, bearing in mind the trauma that you do. It doesn't mean that you stay there. It doesn't mean that you accept. It's about recognizing, hold on a second, I'm almost predisposed to behaving like this. Because the sum of the pieces of the parts lead me to this behavior. Now that I know that, I now have choices to do something different. But we're not given that experience, we're not given that reality. When we don't see ourselves in books, when we don't see ourselves on the television, when we don't see ourselves, creating and being things, it's almost part of our behavior, as in, well, I can't.
Right.
I can't do this. I don't know how to do it. We can. Absolutely. But some of the things is recognizing actually we can do this. Finding places that support that, recognizing it's a fight back. It's a change of behavior. It's taking risks. Sort of standing out, but not doing it on your own. And I think some of the work that you're actually doing, advocating, is that let's have a space where first of all we can communicate. Then once we recognize the change that needs to be made, let's start making the inroads and supporting to be able to do that.
Okay, brilliant. So we had a brief discussion before about, I guess, about the stigma around mental therapy, talking about mental health, and there's this trust barrier that's between the Black community and mental health practitioners. So I guess, why is that there? Is it still there? And how can we start kind of, because there is a movement. There is a movement. There is like, I'm seeing a lot more women, should I say, Black women kind of creating these space to discuss our mental health and trauma, etc. So there is a start, there is a stepping stone there, but why does that exist, and does it still exist?
I think it exists with good reason. You see, when you said that there is a disparity, there's a distrust, and you think, okay, there's a distrust, but why? Where did that distrust come from? And psychiatry, psychology, particularly with experimentation on people of African descent, has been horrendous. Let's call a spade a spade. When there has been overrepresentation of either antipsychotic medication through lack of understanding, through taking away people's children or treating them harshly without even investigation. All these horrendous things that happened. You've got to survive. How do you get up in the morning and continue? You keep quiet. So we're talking about survival. To speak about your pain, what's that going to do? So therefore, keep quiet, carry on. But something happens. You see, it comes at a price. So when we don't talk about things for good reasons, because sometimes you've got to keep secrets. But these secrets now, further traumatize us and further instigate the abuse. So we've learned to shut down, shut up, get on with it. We haven't had a history of recognizing healthy relationships. So we then go on and create and accept unhealthy relationships. So where in our history, since our interruption of healthy relationships, family bonding, finding security in your family, how can you do that? How can you bond with each other when you're going to be separated, or when you're going to watch your brother rape your grandmother? Or being butt broken. Where do you find the security to do that? And the expectation is, forget about that and carry on. It's not as if it happened over 10 or 20 or a year. It's talking about generational trauma. So therefore, the product that you have now is a reaction or an action to things that is passed on. Where did we learn to do that? And let's talk about it honestly, and let's us talk about it and take responsibility for where we go from here, because it is not and hasn't been for a very long time, if ever, a level playing field in terms of what we see as family, what we see as relationships, what we see as future proofing, it has not been a level playing field. So let's stop pretending as if it is. Let's start from where we find ourselves. Once we do that and start talking about it unapologetically, because this is our healing. So when we talk about convalescing, part of it is recognizing, you know what, I'm not well.
Oh, I love convalescing. I like the word convalescing. Yeah.
It just came to me, like, you know, you have a baby now, and before you have a baby in the morning, you go home in the afternoon.
Yeah,
you know, you get back on with it. You're ill, you have an operation, they do a bit of keyhole, and then you go back to it. And what do you do that's different? You're coming through trauma. There's things that you don't do anymore, but it comes from a process of understanding. And what I've recognized is I've stopped becoming so judgmental because I understand why potentially someone behaves the way they do. I saw she's dear man. What's wrong with she? I saw she. Why? How did that person end up that way? And if you sat and listened to their story, it would make perfect sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect sense.
Yeah.
They're displaying only the sum cumulative total of their life history.
Amazing.
Really?
I'm glad we're delving into that. So, in regards to family, you mentioned family there, relationships. Within our culture, family is really important. It's almost like a staple. You know, you go to Nan's every Sunday.
Yes.
You know, we're in each other's houses day by day. COVID hits, we're all isolated, particularly the older community who have sort of gone to church every Sunday for 20, 30 years, all of a sudden no church. How do we cope being separated for a community that relies heavily on social interaction? Heavily. How do we cope with this being possibly the new normal? I mean, we've just entered another lockdown yet again where we've been restricted to 6 people, and now they're kind of saying that you'll be fined if you break it, etc., etc. How do we adapt to that as a, particularly being a culture who heavily relies on, similar to the Asian culture, heavily relies on social interaction with family? Because I know it's getting a lot of people down.
Absolutely.
And we don't know how to cope. We don't talk about it. We don't address it. Nan and Grandad, they ain't seen nobody. You know, they'll moan, "Oh, me not see nobody fit all week. Me not see," you know, and they're getting scared and they're getting worried, and you know, they're not big on talking about their feelings. But we know from the things that they're saying, they're getting worried. They're scared. They're on their own. They're watching the news all day. You know, sometimes my mum will watch the news from morning until night, and that's not good. So how can we cope being isolated from each other?
Well, we've got means at our disposal, and I think one of the things that fortunately stands in our good stead is that we have gone through things nothing like this, but we still found ways to survive. And it's about becoming creative and using the current legislation, for example. So there's 6 of us, let's create our bubble.
Let's be a bit more strategic.
Absolutely. But this is what we're going to do. And it's about talking about it. It's about asking for help, asking for support. And I don't know how to do this. How can I do this? But for us and our survival and our living is we are social beings. Highly. It's if I see you, my natural instinct is to hug you. You know, you go, oh my gosh, I can't do that anymore. It's not normal for us. So this is a part of our adjusting. If we look at it temporarily, or how do we get on, you know, like we can still do that, we can still do things, we will come up with things because that is part of our culture that identifies us. That's part of our uniqueness in terms of our warmth, our ability to survive. But we just don't want to survive. We start creatively making ways that we live with this. Hopefully it won't become the new normal. But if it does, let's talk about how we can get around this. And it's the communication. It is the communication about getting tips and ideas and sharing, which is what we do. Or creating bubbles that can support. So we can do that.
So, you know, proactively, how would we contact family members? Say WhatsApp group. Let's put together a little WhatsApp group. And just figure out, you know, how we're going to work this thing, like how we're going to interact with each other.
Yeah.
Let's keep some games going. Let's do some quizzes.
Yes.
Let's get on Zoom. Let's make sure that Nan and Grandad has a tablet.
Yes.
Someone's given Nan and Grandad a tablet so that they can log on to their church service or whatever.
And who can safely visit?
Yeah.
Because there will need to be some support in terms of practicalities, whether it be bathing, feeding and all those things. Who can we have as a constant staple, and what do they need to do to keep themselves safe and Nan and Grandad safe as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
But what I've been really impressed by are the WhatsApp groups and all of those things, that we start communicating again. Use the resource that's available to us, giving people responsibilities and roles, and keeping the family together. It is the fundamental basis of our community heritage.
Absolutely. I was just thinking about, as you were talking, I was just thinking about how to deal. Now, I'm someone who's on social media every single day, or like every single day I'll be on social media for my job, for socially as well. You know, it keeps me in contact with people, but also as you open the door to so much information that's not good for us in particular. I mean, you know, we had George Floyd who was killed, and then from that you had the Black Lives Matter protests, and then it's almost like a domino effect, isn't it? Once one comes out, then you got every other day there's videos of this person being killed, and black people are 4 times more likely to die, and you know, inner city deprivation, front line, and then you're hearing of black workers who have died. How do we manage social media and the information that's coming in? Like, because I don't think it's healthy for black people to be sitting on social media, but I'm talking to myself because I sit on social media every day. And it gets to the point sometimes where it's the first thing I go on in the morning, and I have to consciously stop myself and say, like, no. Sometimes I'll put my phone in the hallway because then I won't be able to pick it up first thing. So how can we manage that?
One of the things that I advocate, and I also had to learn, was self-care. It's not something that came natural to me, because when we talked about generational trauma, you know, we just get through the day and we work like nobody's business, and then we flop and we fold and we get up again and we do it all again. So one of the things that's instrumental in convalescing is self-care, and even asking a basic question: how is this helpful for me right now? Because when we are re-traumatized and re-triggered by things that we see happening to people that look like us, we go into hyper-arousal or fear-based, and then because there's nothing we can do about it, sensory overload, we flop down, we shut down, and then we become desensitized to actually having the willingness to do anything about it. The feeling of helplessness becomes overwhelming, and then we go back into a stage of, okay, we suppress our anger because we can't do anything about it, or we feel we can't do anything about it. So one of the things that I would ask is, how is this taking in of so much information helping me right now? How does it benefit me? We have the capacity, we're talking about convalescing, getting healing, is we have the ability to put up some boundaries and say, okay, I will need to get this information, I've got it, I don't need any more. Just little things like that. Or how is that piece of information helping me right now?
Almost like risk assess.
Absolutely. What do I get from this? And figure out what space you can take that information in and when not to. And some practical measures. I was talking to you before about this app blocker that someone introduced me to, and you download it on your phone and you put in all the websites and platforms that you don't want to see, so you can type in Instagram, Facebook, and no matter how many times you go on there, it won't let you in. And I think some of those things are quite productive in helping us, because sometimes we have the information, okay, I need to do this, but then you need to be able to put the measures into place. So it's good to have some of those things where you can say, okay, let me download this, and it will make sure I don't get this instant information constantly all through the day, because you can't control what someone posts. And also on Instagram, I think it's on the explore part of Instagram, it would just come up. So if you've been watching, you know, killings and different things all day, you just have it would just flood your explore. But if you can cater it, so you might want to just put in food or puppies or cats or something like that, so then
that will flood your timeline then, so you won't have this random image of someone dead on the floor.
I think only on social media do we actually normalise or get used to seeing black people getting killed.
Yeah.
However, you don't see white people getting killed.
No.
It would be taken down. YouTube or Insta or Facebook wouldn't allow it. But we're allowed to see and be exposed to constant killings, or of black people, and it's okay. Or we're allowed to have that lyrics played in our subconscious all the time as if it's okay. That is not okay. It is not us. That is not what we do. That is not what we did. That is what we have become. So these things that's what we do. That is not our culture. That is not supportive of us in terms of living, in terms of us, because culture isn't something that's static. Culture finds solutions to the challenges that you find at the moment. So even if you grow in a culture, it'll adapt to its climate, it'll adapt to its medium, and then it wants to survive. Not just live. It wants to live, not just to survive. So if we're talking about how are we finding solutions to the challenges that we face, we are supposed to be coming up with creative, progressive, healthy ways of life in the 2020.
Absolutely.
Not in things that cause our demise and our extermination. So that proves to me that what we're thinking of being culture as being normal is become acceptable. It is not helpful to us as a group of people, psychologically, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. These are not helpful. These are things that when we're talking about putting boundaries up, it's like saying, I won't allow that. I don't have that around me. I don't associate with people that do that. When you ask them, well, why aren't we friends anymore? I'm so sorry, but I don't do that anymore. I don't say those things anymore. I don't talk about that anymore. I don't talk about other people like that anymore. I don't eat that anymore. I don't go there anymore. Okay. Why? Then the conversation can come in. But if we don't start having boundaries and assessing, well, why am I doing this? Whose agenda am I actually serving? I have the capacity to choose. And very rarely, and a wonderful psychotherapist told me that, we very rarely have two choices, never one. If we took time and stood back and saw, we've got choices. We do. But can we take responsibility for the choices that we make? It may be that we displease someone else with choices that we make, but we always have them. Never two.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. So where can we find you? Earlier we spoke about a service that was available, so can you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, because I also understand that therapy, there's a cost to it. Not a lot of people, or not everyone can afford it, but I think it should be accessible to all. And if in particular you want to have a therapist that looks like you, that should be available. So I do some work with an organisation called Spring to Life. And they work similar to Birmingham Healthy Minds in terms of they come into certain areas, I think all around Birmingham. Their GPs know about them. And Birmingham Healthy Minds is, I think, the right that every patient has to have therapy, but the waiting lists are quite long. So we come in and we reduce those waiting times, and we offer 5 sessions, which is better than nothing. And it could be amazing what you discover in 5 sessions. If you want longer term support, there is longer term support out there, but we're the first port of call if someone just needs someone to offload onto. And I'm passionate about serving the black community within those 5 free sessions. A lot of people don't know, or I'm not sure if GPs are telling people as opposed to giving them medication. I'm not sure, but in the time I've been working with Spring to Life, I've seen very few black clients.
Which is absolute life.
It's not good. So therefore, I'm saying that I'm available. And there are other black therapists available in the organisation. If you choose or you want to speak to someone that looks like you from your cultural background, then that service is now available.
Brilliant. So is it a website that go on to?
Yes, it's www.springtolife.org. And if you tell them that, I'm living in Birmingham, as long as you've got a GP your GP practice in Birmingham, then you're entitled to therapy.
Amazing.
If you specifically want someone that looks like yourself or shares your history, then ask for it specifically.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much for chatting to
You're more than welcome.
Lynda. Like, it's been so insightful. Like, we could talk all day, but I hope this information helps everybody else who's watching.